So now we move on to the next canto, Canto 8, the word of falsehood, the mother of evil, and the sons of darkness. This is another one. This is a kind of sequel of what it is. He has to meet hell now, and the entire description is about that hell. You see completely. Now this canto has 4 sections: 61, 62, 63, 64. 4 sections. You see. In all, there are 105 sentences, 460 lines, 460 lines, and 3,418 words. 3,418 words. It's not really very long canto, but one of the longest cantos also is 3,418 words is 460 lines. 460 lines is relatively small. You see, one of some of the cantos we have seen, they have got 900, 800, 900 lines like that, you see. So relatively, this is a small canto, you see. But very frightening, you see. So we'll now move on to section 1 of this canto, section 61. It has just 17 sentences, this particular section, 79 lines, and 557 words. So again, this is a relatively small section, just 500 to 600 words, you see. Now he speaks of the mother of darkness and the sons, the mother of evil and the sons of darkness, the mother of evil and the sons of darkness. In the Indian mythology, in the Puranas, the mother of darkness, of evil, is known by the name Diti. Diti, who divides. Diti, D-A-T-I, who divides. The opposite of Aditi. Aditi, indivisible. Aditi is indivisible. Diti is divisible. So the division is actually behind this entire process of darkness. The power of division is what is really standing behind falsehood, evil, darkness is the power of division, you see. Division, you are dividing yourself away from the Supreme Source, from the infinite, from God Himself. Therefore, it is division. Then could you see the hidden heart of night? Then, what does the then mean? Because he could bear. Because he could endure the darkness. Because he could bear, he could endure. Therefore, he could see the hidden heart of the night. Now that is a very exceptional kind of yogic capacity to bear and to endure that thing. Then only you could see the heart of the night. Now, I don't know if any yogi has really done that at all in the entire spiritual history. Whether any yogi has really done that kind of a thing at all. Maybe to some extent you have a bit of an idea of it in the Puranas, because the Puranas describing what are called the lower world, Patala. They are describing 7 lower worlds, one below the other, 7 lower worlds, Patala. In the lowest Patala, you have all this kind of a thing. So maybe some of those yogis had seen those things, experienced those things, you see. But this is something very unusual, you see, very unusual. In any case, it is, I will say, for the first time that an avatar is seeing it. You had earlier many avatars. None of those avatars had gone to this night to see the hidden heart of night. None. That was not a part of their agenda at that time. So the question of seeing the heart of the night is not. They have come with a specific purpose for a specific kind of a job to advance the evolution from one stage to the other stage. So in that process, it was not necessary for them to go back into the night and see. But now a point has come in the process of evolution that you cannot now go further unless you look into the night. And therefore this avatar is in a way by the circumstances compelled also to see the hidden heart of night. He cannot now escape. He has to see the hidden heart of night, what it is there. See, and as I said, when the yogi is seeing the hidden heart of night, I mean, what he is doing? He is not seeing the darkness there in the night. In the heart, he does not see the darkness. He sees some kind of a luminous divine presence behind that heart. And it is that luminous divine presence behind that heart, it is that which has to come out and do its work in that situation, in that condition. So when he sees, it's not just for the sake of gazing at it, take a mirror, put a torchlight and see it. It's not that. It is to see the meaning, the purpose of all that thing which is there. Then could you see the hidden heart of night, the labor of a star unconsciousness. Its heart. It stands for heart. The labor of a star unconsciousness reveals the endless, terrible, inane, the greatness of nothing, inanity. It is that which is now seeing. Because of this night, there is a terrible inane. And that inane, the vacancy of the divine, that is the inane there, you see. It is that which is the vastness of divine, a kind of a desert where divine is not present at all. No flower of divinity can grow there at all. No cactus also. Nothing can happen there, you see. Reveal the endless, terrible inane, a spiritless blank infinity was there. A spiritless blank infinity was there. Even the spirit is not there present. Even the spirit is not there. What a terrible thing, you see. I mean, in the Indian, a nature that denies the eternal truth. But what is present is the nature who denies the truth. Who deny the truth. You see. Actually, there is the void, complete emptying of the divine himself, shunya, zero, cipher, complete absence of the divine. When that absence of the divine is seen, then the divine plunges into that void and becomes the inconscient self. When he comes and stays himself there as the inconscient self, that is the first avatar of the divine coming into this creation, he does not come alone. He has always accompanying with him his power of execution, nature force. So nature force and the divine being, they always go together in every plane of existence. The self, the being and Prakriti, they always go together. So nature that denies the eternal. So because he is not there now, so she is going to deny the truth there. She is going to deny the truth there in the way, in braggart, freedom of his thought, braggart, boasting, freedom of the thought. Whose is that blank infinity? His blank infinity is freedom, his thought. Hope to abolish God and reign alone. That is the purpose. That nature, no, I will not allow anything to come here at all, you see. There was no sovereign guest, no witness light. Unhelmed, it would create its own bleak world. Unhelmed, it would create. There was no light, there was no guest. Who would create otherwise? It's a bleak world. These lines we have seen earlier also in the other context. The other context is 58.2. 58.2. There, God and truth and supernal light, God and truth and supernal light had never been, or else had power, no more. Had never been, that power no more. This is what we have seen last time, you see, or else you see. Yeah. So this is the guest. There was no sovereign guest. Sovereign guest. The inconscient self is there, but no sovereignty of that. No witness line. Unhelmed, it would create its own bleak world. Its large, blind eyes looked out on demon and its of that dark infinity. Of that blank infinity, spiritless blank infinity. Its large blind eyes looked out on demon acts. So what is doing? That blank infinity, demon acts. Acts which go against the divine. His deaf ears heard, the untruth, his dumb lips speak. His huge misguided fancy took vast shape. His mindless sensations quivered with fears concealed, engineering the broad principle of life. Evil and pain begot a monstrous soul. Monstrous soul. Now this is a soul, a power of the inconscience itself acting there. Soul in that sense, monstrous soul, the power of inconscience itself acting there. So, see, we say poor soul. In the ordinary language, we say poor soul. It does not mean that deeper soul. We say poor soul. There is also called the surface soul in our case. Surface soul in our case is the ego personality made up of outer nature, of vital, physical, mental, those coming together forming a kind of an entity, and we call that as a surface soul, you see. But the deeper, real, divine soul is within us, deep in the heart, in the cave of the heart. Deep within. Now it is not that. It's a monstrous soul. It has a power to do certain things, you see. The anarchs of the formless depths arose. Now what does it do, this monstrous soul? The monstrous soul, you have got the anarchs, or the formless depths arose. Formless depth, because it's a void, so there is no form there at all. From that, constantly the anarchs are arising. Constantly the anarchs are arising. Anarchs, the advocates of hostility, of division, of confusion. That is the advocates of them, you see.
What are unarmed?
Huh?
What are unarmed?
Advocates of separation, division. Let me give the exact meaning. Advocates of anarchy, leaders of revolt. Leaders of revolt, anarchs. See, he puts a capital A, anarchs. Leaders of revolt. So, revolt against whom? Against any divine intrusion into their place. Any divine intrusion into their world, they will revolt, they will resist, they will not allow it to enter in at all. They are the anarchs. So, we are going to see them, falsehood, evil, sin, all these are the parts of the anarchy, of that kind of thing, you see. The fallen angel, they are the parts of it. Demons, Pishachas, Rakshasas, Asuras, they are all of that part of it, you see. In the Greek mythology, you have got demons, you have got giants, you have got titans. You see, the three. Demons, Pishachas, Rakshasas, giants, titans, Asuras. Asuras are mental beings. Giants are vital beings. Demons are vital physical. Vital physical. Coming from the inconscience. Coming from the inconscience. They are the anarchs. They are the anarchs. From the physical, from the vital, from the mental, rising in revolt against the divine. Rising in revolt against the divine. The anarchs, the formless depths arose. Formless depths, formless because it is a void. great Titan beings. Well, he says Titan beings and demoniac powers. You see, he has named both. You see, Asuras and Pishachas is named here. Titan beings and demoniac powers. World egos racked with lust and thought and will. Racked with lust and thought and will. Lust for the vital, thought for the mental, will for the physical. So these world egos are of these three kinds: vital, mental, physical. Lust and thought and will. World egos racked. So world egos, Swati was racked. I am with lust, I am, and thought, I am, and will, I am. World egos. First foot is Spondy. Ego. World egos racked with lust and thought and will. Practically a monosyllabic line, you see. World egos racked with lust and thought and will. So it becomes very forceful also, insistent, the monosyllabic. Vast minds and lives without a spirit within. Vast minds and lives. Vast minds, asuras, lives, rakshasas, with lust, without a spirit within. Vast minds and lives without a spirit within. So these are the anarchs. He is describing now the anarchs. You be prepared now to meet them in this section, you see. Impatient architects of error's house. So they are the one who build the error's house. What is the error? What is the error? The error is to deviate away from the divine path, from the path of truth. That is the error. From the path of truth, to deviate from that. Impatient architects of error's house, leaders to the cosmic ignorance and unrest. So they are the anarchs. So the whole complete description is there of the anarchs. And sponsors of sorrow and mortality, embodied the dark ideas of the abyss. The abyss has dark ideas and they are embodying those dark ideas of the abyss. Who? These anarchs. And these are, what a description, complete description is there, 61.5. The anarchs, the formless depths arose, great Titan brains and demoniac powers, world egos racked with lust and thought and will. Vast mind, spondy, and lives, I am, without, I am, space, I am, writ within, Anarchist. Impatient architects of error's house, leaders of the cosmic ignorance and unrest, and sponsors of sorrow and mortality, sponsors of sorrow and mortality, mrityu. It is they who are sponsoring, you see, because of them, this mortality is there, embodied dark ideas of the abyss. So what is the strength, what is the notion, what is the conception? The idea of the abyss. The idea, abyss has that idea of destruction, of opposing anything which would be coming as from the divine. The shadow substance into emptiness came. So actually there is a substance here, material presence is there, but it is a shadow of darkness. Into emptiness, that void. Okay. Dim forms are born in the unthinking void. So that is the first creation out of the void. Out of the void, the material forms are arising, but then they are shadow substance, darkness substance, substance of darkness, dark matter. Well, not the dark matter of astrophysics, but real dark matter. Into emptiness came, emptiness in that void. Well, that itself is an advance. From the void, that there are forms arising is a great step forward. Maybe those forms are divisive, those forms are anti-divine, but the void has brought out something is a great advance in the process of evolution. The evolution begins with that. When that begins, it's a great advance, you see. Otherwise, what do you do with the void, you see? Dim forms are born, the unthinking void, and eddies made and adverse pain, in whose black folds being imagined hell. Black folds in whose black hole being imagined hell. The Supreme Being who is there, he is imagining hell there now. Made in adverse space, adverse, which is not conducive for the divine work, which will oppose anything which is happening here. So it is a kind of a slippery ground. If you walk on that ground, that's slippery, you will fall into the pit, into the abyss constantly, you see, and endless met and made in adverse way, in whose black holes, one above the other, being imagined hell. His eyes imagined. Is it just an imagination? No, it is a reality actually. It is a fact. He sees all that thing happening there, you see. And whose black hole being imagined. His eyes, his, of course, Ashwapati, the yogi, the discoverer. His eyes piercing the triple-plated gloom, triple-plated gloom, triple-plated gloom, triple. The word triple appears how many times in Savitri? Let me see. If I got. Well, I don't think I had counted them. Maybe somewhere there. Okay, we'll see that thing. Triple occurs quite often in Savitri, see. It doesn't appear here. Triple plated gloom. His eyes piercing. The dactyl. His eyes piercing. Dactyl. The trip. I am. Plate. I am. So the second foot is a dactyl. Other foots are iams. His eyes piercing the triple-plated globe, and see the alliteration of the line, piercing, triple-plated, and of course L, triple gloom. His eyes pierce. Now what is a triple-plated gloom? This is of course a gloom, all right. He has already described triple-plated of lust and thought and will. The vital, the mental, the physical, that is a triple-plated gloom of lust and thought and will. Triple-plated gloom. It means it is not really real. It is a kind of a coating, see, in a certain sense. Yeah. Triple-plated gloom. What a phrase, triple-plated. And this line is very beautiful poetically. His eyes piercing the triple-plated gloom. Keeps on kind of reverberating sound, if you read again and again. It's a very, very dark kind of a line, giving a dark description, but the rhythm is absolutely beautiful, very powerful. His eyes piercing the triple-plated gloom, identifying the sight with its blind stare, blind its of that gloom. Blind stare, accustomed to the unnatural dark, they saw unreality made real and conscious night. They, those anarchs, they saw unreality made real and conscious night. They saw night for themselves as conscious night, you see. A violent, fierce and formidable world. Well, that is the nature of the situation. A violent, fierce and formidable world. An ancient womb of huge kilometers of dreams. So it is coming out from that womb, kilometers of dreams, coiled like a larva in the obscurity that keeps its form, the spear points of heaven's star. Larva, it is about to come out from the scene, but that larva is always coiled, small insect, about to come out. Coiled like a larva in the obscurity. What? It is like an obscurity that keeps, that obscurity which keeps the sphere points of heaven's stars away from them. Obscurity keeps away your sight from the sphere points of heaven's stars. That obscurity. Coiled like a larva in the obscurity, obscurity that keeps it from the sphere. It, larva, that keeps it from the spear points of it. Spear point, it may go and pierce you. Spear. Therefore, that obscurity is protecting this larva from that thing. Spear point of heaven's star, heaven's stars, stars of the night, heaven's star. Now, this is a general image of the stars of the night and the guardians of the night holding spears in their hand. The stars are holding spears. They are the angels of the night, in the night, standing against any evil coming out, you see. And therefore the spear point, so they are holding, the stars are holding spears in that case, you see. Now all these hostile people, against them in the night, the stars are holding the spear of God in their hand, so that they would not do any harm, you see. So this is the general association on the spear points of heaven's stars, you see. It was the gate of false infinite, that whole passage, that infinite. And eternity, your disastrous absolute, disastrous absolute, an immense negation of spiritual thing, an immense negation. It cannot stand there at all. No place for spirituality at all there. The spirit cannot exist here. It was the gate of false infinite. And what? A violent, fierce, formidable world. That it stands for that formidable world. A violent, fierce and formidable world. It was the gate of a false infinite. And eternity, your disastrous absolute and immense negation of spiritual. At once, all once, self-luminous in the spirit's sphere, all once, self-luminous in the spirit's luminous sphere. An ancient womb of huge calamitous dream. Who is that womb? That womb is that formidable world, fierce and formidable world. Fierce and formidable world is the womb of calamitous dreams. These calamitous dreams come out from that fierce and formidable world. Fierce and formidable world. It was the gate of false infinite, and eternity, your disastrous absolute and immense negation of spiritual thing. All one self-luminous in the spirit's sphere. Once in the spirit's sphere, all luminous, turn now into their own dark contraries. Now, he is slowly going to tell us about how it started happening. He is kind of initiating the narrative of the story of creation, the mother story of creation, how it has done. The mother story of creation is in that sense. It was once luminous in the spirit sphere, but now here it is all dark. How it has happened? The process of involution is what he is going to describe in a certain sense, the process of involution. Being collapsed into a pointless void, that is the first thing, pointless void. Being collapsed into a pointless void, that is the first step of involution. Collapsed, gone, finished. Now, that yet was the zero parent of the world. Collapsed into a pointless void. Again, being, trochee, collapsed, I am, into, trochee, a point, I am, this void, I am. So you got trochee, I am, trochee, I am. A pointless void. Now, what do you mean by pointless void? Pointless is a very difficult word. This one is a very difficult word in a certain sense. Pointless void. It has no value, no significance. That would be one meaning. It has no value, no significance. That is the you are talking pointless stuff. You see, your debate is a pointless debate. It is not conveying any message at all, you see. There is no meaning contained in that sense. Pointless debate, pointless argument, we say like that, you see, pointless. But this is, I will not say this is pointless in that sense. This pointless is a very loaded kind of a word here, adjective, pointless void. Actually, I have made a small list of this word pointless. Pointless without force, without meaning, without relevance. That is what we know. It is irrelevant. We are talking pointless, irrelevant thing. This pointless thing, pointless remark. You say normally pointless remark is useless, futile, senseless, meaningless, worthless, stupid. Well, that is what we mean by pointless. It is a stupid argument, pointless argument, meaningless argument, inane. It is also means inane, purposeless. It is a purposeless argument. Hopeless, needless. All these are the senses of the word pointless. Purposeless, hopeless, needless. We also have got a pointless game. The two teams are engaged in a game, none of them is able to score a point. So you call it a pointless game. None of them is able to score a point, you see. It's a pointless game, you see, that is the pointless game. The story is a spirit's waste of proper treasury. Now, pointless void, my take it is something different. That there is not a point in it. Not even a dot is present in it. Point in the sense of a dot. That there is not a point in it. Complete void. Complete void. Complete. So I will say it is kind of a absolutely pure void that not even a dot is present in it. Not even a dot is present in it. So that pointless word is a very difficult word in that sense, you see. Not even a single element is present there at all, you see. Not even a dot. Sign, nothing is present there. Being collapsed into a pointless void, therefore it is a pointless void, nothing. Absolute void, total, purest void, you can say. That nothing is present in it, purest void. Nothing is present. It collapsed into that pure, means a total, complete absence of the divine. That is a pointless void. Being collapsed into a pointless void, that yet was a zero. Parent to the world, from that it could arise. Because, after all, whose point is that? Whose void is that? It is the divine himself. So the divine's potential is also present in that void. It is not coming out, it is not emerging, it does not mean that it is not there. The divine's potential, the divine's power, because after all it is divine himself. The void himself is a divine thing. So it has a certain aspect of giving rise to something, you see, that void, you see. Pointless void, yet was a zero parent to the world. Therefore it is a parent to the world. Therefore it is a parent to the world. And in conscience swallowing the cosmic mind, in conscience swallowing up the cosmic mind, well, that is the power of the void. Whatever tries to come out of that, it will try to gulp. It will try to swallow up gluttonous void, you see, completely. See. In conscience swallowing of the cosmic mind, the mother says that before the entry of mind in the inconscience, before the entry of mind in inconscience was supple, flexible, moldable. But when mind entered into that inconscience, then it became rigid, firm. It has kind of acquired firmness because of its form. Mind is the creator of form there, and a sort of a rigidity has come there. Now that is a great job, task achieved by mind. That what was flexible, multiple as in conscience, as something has to be, if something has to enter in, then that something which is entering into it can get easily swallowed up by the void. If something that flexible, multiple in conscience, something is going to enter, then the void will simply jump upon it and swallow it up. But with the entry of mind there, it becomes rigid and firm, and it will not allow that thing to get swallowed by the void, you see. That thing will not get allowed to swallow. So, in that sense, this mind is playing a certain positive role, that if some divine element has to enter into it, then it should not get swallowed, and therefore mind brings a certain firmness to it. It stands by itself. Now, but this mind itself is now proving at one stage of evolution it was necessary to see that what is entering into it does not get swallowed. But now it has played its role. It must stop. Across the path of divine event, the huge forwarding mind of night. This is the mind of night. The huge forwarding mind of night. Huge forwarding mind of night. It is standing in the path of the divine manifestation now. It is so rigid that it is not allowing anything to enter in, and therefore that has to be overcome. So I will say this is a much deeper occult problem of evolution, that for a certain purpose the mind of night is necessary, but now after having served that purpose, that mind of night has to be got rid of, has got to be changed into mind of light. It has got to be changed into mind of light, you see. So the cosmic mind, in conscious swallowing of the cosmic mind, produced a universe from its little sleep. Bliss into black coma, fallen. So first thing is being, now bliss, the fall. You see, he is describing the process of evolution, how the four powers separated in the mother story of creation. Bliss into black coma, fallen, insensible, coil back to itself and God's eternal joy, through a false buoyant figure of grief and pain. So bliss has become now grief and pain. See, still dolorously nailed upon a cross. Still dolorously nailed upon a cross. Now he's changing the imagery. Now that bliss is nailed on the cross. It has to make a sacrifice of itself. It has entered into this creation, it has to make a sacrifice, still dolorously nailed upon a cross, fixed in the soil of dumb, insentient world. Dumb, insentient world. Well, that is the picture of Jerusalem of that time, the time of crucifixion. Dumb, insentient world, you see. People are insensitive to the divine presence. They don't understand, they don't have perception that something great has occurred there, and they are murdering, killing, nailing him on the cross and that kind of a thing, you see. Still dolorously nailed upon a cross, fixed in the soil of dumb, insentient world. That is what they did. And all this hooting, shouting, this man carrying the cross and all that thing. What a terrible scene. Via Dolorosa, you see, he's carrying the cross. Fixed in the soil of dumb and insentient world, where birth was a pang and death and agony. Shaman is not going to live without this. See, he is going to tell all kind of things. Lest all too soon should change again to bliss. See, you had to undergo through a long process of evolution. Through a long process of lest all too soon should change again to be almost a monosyllabic line. Lest all, I call it almost a spondy, soon, too soon, suddenly spondy, should change, I am, again, I am, to bliss, I am. Lest all too soon should change. So this too spontaneous in the beginning brings together force in the whole impact. It's terrific, you see. That is the poetic art of Savitri. lest all too soon should change again to bliss again. No, you have to undergo through this process of suffering and all that thing. Must go. Bakes in the soil of dung in ancient world. So bliss has become like that. Being has become like that. So we are given two examples of that thing. Now, thought sat a priestess of perversity. The divine thought has now become perverse. Priestess, thought is a feminine. Priestess of perversity, worshipping perversity on a black tripod or triune snake. Triune snake, thought sat a priestess of perversity on her, that priestess thought. Black tripod, three-legged stool of the triune snake, triune, again, threefold, triple snake, the physical, the vital, the mental, in the vital, in the subconscious, the physical, the vital, the mental, in the subconscious. Now, snake is of course the power of illusion, energy calling up, you see, tripod of the triune snake thought. It has come to that point here, see. Reading by opposite sign the eternal script, a sorceress reversing lies God frame. Sorceress, she is a sorceress, priestess of perversity thought. Reversing lives God frame. She is changing what life has brought here. Tripod, three-legged stool. Now, of course, you had the Tripos in Cambridge University. You take Tripos examination, Tripos. Three-legged stool, yeah, like that. Means what? A candidate who is going to complete his graduation, he is interviewed by the professors in front of him. There is a tripod in front of him, and the candidate goes, the student goes and sits there, and then all the professors will ask him 100 questions like that, you see. These things, the thing. And if you clear them, then you are cleared, you are passed, you see. So that is the tripos, you see, on which you sit here. Shivantu had completed the tripos seat in Cambridge, you see. Wrangler, Pransky, all these people are great wrangler, you see, who struggle, fight out, argument, you see, tripod. So that was the custom in those days. You sit down on the tripod as a student and you are interviewed, and then the professors will ask you questions, and then you make notes and all that kind of a thing. So that is the tripod. Triune snake, threefold snake, vital, physical, mental, of course, as we have seen earlier. Now this word triune appears number of times in Savitri. Triune ecstasies, 24.17. 24.17. Triune ecstasies. Triune snake, what is what we got? 61.11. Triune being, 3-4 being, 125.29. 125. Triune being, that is Satchitananda, threefold. Satchitananda, that is triune, Trinity. Trinity, Satchitananda. Well, of course, the Christian Trinity is different, but the spiritual Trinity is Satchitananda, triune being, triune infinite, 153.31. So you have got 24.17, 61.11, 125.29, and 153.31, triune. Now, the first experimental atom bomb, which was exploded in 1945-44 at Alamogordo, it was called Trinity. It was called Trinity, you see, the first experimental called Trinity, because of all these things. Maybe because of three forces, three armies, three units are already combined together to produce it. So the code name was Trinity at that time. So the Trinity, Tripod, Triune, they're all related, you see, in that sense. You see. Reading by opposite sign, the eternal script. So the reading by opposite sign, the eternal script. A sorceress reversing lies, God. So that is the fall of thought, fall of bliss, fall of bliss. Then in darkling with evil eyes for lambs, with evil eyes for lambs. And fatal voices chanting from the apse. Fatal voices chanting from the apse. So in the church, you have got that big long corridor at the end of the church apse. Behind the altar is the apse, and around that thing is the ambulator. You go around and move around, you see. So Shaman has given complete church description here. In darkling aisles, so you have got first darkling aisle, then you have got the altar, behind that is the apse, behind that is, around that is the, all those things are there. In strange, infernal, dim basilica, intoning the magic of the holy word. So in that church what they do? Magic of the unholy word, not the divine word, the unholy word. So that is the complete church image, which is also realistic in a certain sense, as you see. Intoning the magic of the unholy word, the Om is profound, initiate, profound, initiate, perform the ritual of her mysteries of that night of the word, unholy word. Initiate her mysteries. Complete description, full description. In dark lands with evil eyes or lamps. So we got lamps there with candle. Well, actually, normally candles or lamps now, see. And fatal was a chanting from apse in strange, infernal, bacillal, intoning magic. Because he has seen all that. He lived for 11 years. He was with the priest, and he knows everything about Christianity. You see, his rituals and all that thing. Nobody else could have written like that, you see. Their suffering was nature's daily food. Well, you live because of you suffer. Alluring to the anguished heart and pleasure, and torture was the formula. Torture was the formula of delight. Pain mimicked the celestial ecstasy. Pain mimicked the celestial ecstasy. People are there who enjoy somebody's suffering. You beat, you kill, you do all kind of things, torture them. People enjoy that kind of thing. It's absolutely bestial, in fact worse than bestial, you see. It is demonic, devilish, you see. They are suffering was nature's daily food, alluring to the anguished heart and pleasure, and torture was the formula of delight. Pain mimicked the celestial ecstasy. There, good if faith is guarder of God. So the good has become now the fall. You see, he is giving the fall. Good has become the faithless gardener of God. Watered with virtue the world's upas tree. Watered with virtue the world's upas tree. The poison tree of Java. Upas tree. Upas tree. Now actually, it is a tall, huge tree, and it is said that around 16 miles of that tree, nothing can live. It exudes poison, and that poison will kill every kind of life. Nothing will exist around that tree. 16 miles around that tree, nothing will exist. Upas in Java, see. Nothing will exist here. Upas tree, huh?
No, it's not true.
Does it exist now?
No, it's not true, no?
Well,
16 miles is not possible.
Another road.
pardon me? No,
In another road.
no, it is true. You see, now, it is true, it is true, it is true that there is a tree like that,
Where?
and around that tree, there is no life at all for 16 miles around it.
Where is it?
In Java,
Java.
in Java. Java, I got the
16.
Batar, they call it Batar, Java, Batar. Now,
So what is the food or the seed or the leaves?
I'll come to that. I'll come to that. But here the description is of a tree which will not allow anything to exist around it.
Yeah.
Metaphorically, the tree will not allow anything to live around it in that area completely, you see. Metaphorically, that is how you see here. Now, it is a fact in Java, Matar. Now, people had done some sort of an investigation, scientific research, and there is a paper in Scientific America published more than 150 years ago, 1858, about this particular tree, and they say that it is true that that tree exists there and there is no life around it, but that there is no life around it is not due to the tree, but due to kind of a poisonous eruption of volcano which was present there.
Oh, okay.
Poisonous gases which are coming out at one time of time. It is that poisonous gas which is not allowing any life to exist at all. It is not due to the tree.
Yeah, but this tree could
Exists.
No, even the volcano.
Yes,
This tree
yes, it
could
exists,
live.
exactly.
So it's very powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful, very strong tree. Yeah, it exists, you see. It's a very strong, powerful tree, you see. Upas tree. It's a famous kind of a tree. And nothing around that thing exists because of this poisonous fumes which are coming from that volcano which is burst at one time, you see. No life is present there at all. Scientific American has a big article on that, published more than 1858, I think. Yeah, 1858, July 1858, published long ago, you see. Yeah. Now, of course, here it is used as a metaphor in the sense that this tree, the poison tree, will not allow any life to grow around it at all completely. Now, obviously, world superstream, so it is not just around 16 miles. This metaphor is so strong that around that whole thing, no life will be possible at all completely, you see. It's a very powerful metaphor in that sense, you see. Now, these people had done further investigation. They say that the tree does not emit any poisonous gas, exhume any poisonous gas at all, the tree. But the juice of the tree is extremely poisonous. The juice of the tree is extremely poisonous, completely, you see. But the tree by itself does not exhume. So that is the scientific finding. The tree is there, it's a very poisonous tree, and it seems that tree also occurs in other parts of the world, in South Africa or somewhere there around that thing kind of a thing. And its juice is extremely poisonous. Poisonous, so people what they do is, they extract that poison, that juice, make it dry, and put it on the arrow tips. Arrow tip. So when you are shooting with that arrow, any animal or any person is bound to die immediately. So they are exploiting that juice also for the purposes of fighting against things like that, you see. They did like that, you see. So this is the kind of a scientific background of the tree, Upas tree. But the fact is that around it, metaphorically, no life can exist. It is not the tree which is causing the absence of life there, because the tree is not exhuming any poison gas. The poison gas is coming because of the eruption from the volcano, but at the same time the tree has a very, very, very poisonous juice in it, you see. Upas tree, watered with virtue. So you are growing, nourishing the tree with virtue, the world's upas, the poison tree, you see, poison tree. And careful with the outward word and act, engrafted his hypocrite blooms on native soil. His God, gardener of God, engrafted his hypocrite blooms on native soil. So this is the fall. You see, describing now fourth stage. You are describing good. How good has become an ill. See. Being was there first, then came bliss, then came thought. Now is the good. You see, all things high, so the neither opposite. So this is the complete fall. Those who have entered here, now they have become completely opposite, antagonistic. All things high, so that neither opposite. The forms of God sustained the demon God. The form, see, they were actually the emanations of God, but then they got so away from God Himself that they have become opposite, and they have built up their own cult, their own civilization, their own way of life and thinking. Heaven's face became a mask and snare of hell. So that is the fall. So he has described first being, then he has described bliss, then he has described thought, he has described good, now he is describing heaven. Heaven has become now hell, you see. Heaven has become, heaven became a ma. So that is the separation, the fall, the involution of prostitution. Now this theme of involution appears in number of places in Savitri, in different contexts. This is one particular context which you heard. We'll see some of them things later on in more detail, but that's how it happens, you see. There in the heart of vain phenomenon, in enormous actions written core, he saw a shape illimitable and vague. He, Ashwapati, in spite of this fall, after this involution, he still sees some kind of a meaning, some kind of a sense, significance, illimitable and vague. He saw a shape, there is a definite form there, sitting on death, who swallows all things above. So after the fall, what does he see? He sees a shape, illimitable and vague, sitting on death. She is sitting on death. Who is she? He saw a shape illimitable. Who is that person? The mother of evil. She is the mother of evil. The mother of evil is sitting on death. Mother of evil sitting, mother of evil sitting. In other words, there in the heart of veil phenomenon, in an enormous actions, written core, he saw a shape illimitable way, sitting on death, who swallows all things born. Now, who is swallowing all things born? Death. It is on that death she is sitting, the mother of evil. So if you want evil to go away, the necessity is to knock off the death. She is sitting on death, and therefore if you want to remove evil, you have to knock off death completely. So that is the entire argument. Evil will exist, falsehood will exist as long as death is present. They are sitting on it. Evil is sitting on death. So you cannot remove evil unless you remove death. So the entire crux, the entire issue lies in handing death. That is in fact the problem, the proposition of Savitri. Savitri comes here to knock out death completely. When she does that, then evil and falsehood all will disappear. All will disappear. So the work of Savitri is connected with that, to knock out this death on whom all these things are sitting. You see. A chill fixed face with dire and motionless eyes. A chill fixed face with dire and motion. That is the description of that lady. Her, he says now, her dreadful strident in a shadowy hand. A chill fixed face with dire and motionless, sitting there, her dreadful. Now this trident is wrong. It is trident. In the 1950 edition, it is strident, but that is a printing mistake. It is actually trident. 3-pointed spear. Poseidon's trident, or Shiva's trident. Shiva has a trident with 3 prongs in his hand. And she is sitting, Durga, she has got a trident in her hand. One of the weapons in her hand is a trident. On that Shiva's Durga is there. Trident in the shadowy hand. So she is, that mother of evil is carrying a trident. For what? You cannot deny me, disobey me. My trident is there. So if a good person comes and denies that thing, she is there to pierce it. Means the act of Durga is being performed by this lady in the nether world, this mother of evil. She is the deformed, degraded, fallen Durga. So if you want to call it now, starting from you had being, you had bliss, you have got thought, you have got good, you have got after good we had hell, and then now so good hell, and now Durga, the fallen Durga is there, the mother of evil. She, the descent. When she enters into this world, this is what happens to her: a chill, fixed face, with tired and motionless eyes. Motionless eyes, she is firm in her way. Her dreadful trident in her shadowy hand, outstretched, she pierced all creatures with one way. That is her act. But now this Durga will remove all that opposes this thing. The divine Durga who comes every October to the ashram. She used to meet Mother Durga in every October on the Saturday, you see. She spent a lot of time there, and they had got a lot of conversation. Ajanta is full of that, you see. And very, very interesting kind of conversations are there. A chill, fixed face, with tired and motionless eyes, and dreadful trident in her shadowy hand, outstretched she pierced all creatures with one way. So this is the kind of introduction to the canto. You see, here described the entire fall, how it has happened here, and now the multiplicity of these forms which are there in this case. It will follow this next section. When nothing was saying matter without soul. We'll take up that next time, you see. What a rich canto also. See, I mean, just 17 sentences, but see the kind of picture you have drawn. Such a detailed picture you will not get anywhere in the literature. No Puranas are going to describe you all that. It's such precision, because he's seeing them and writing them down simply forever. What a description.
So how will the supermind change?
Pardon me?
How will the supermind change? Or
How?
How will the supermind change this?
Change.
Supermind.
See, it is a process of evolution. Now, first thing you have absolute void. Out of that absolute void, the inconscience is born. Out of that inconscience, form, matter entered, matter became form, then life entered. In other words, you have to prepare the ways by the entry of this higher power for the supermind. If supermind comes directly, straight away, without matter and life and mind, the whole thing will get simply crushed. So these powers are really building up a base, a support for supramental action and supramental manifestation. So it is a kind of a logical process that it has to go through this cycle. Physical, the vital, the mental, the spiritual, then the supramental. Unless that kind of a richness is produced here, that firmness, that base is adhara is produced here, the supermind will not be able to. Otherwise, everything will get completely crushed, you see. The whole purpose is lost then, you see. The whole purpose. So there is a great divine occult logic in the sequence of this evolution. It is not for we feel that it is a torture and pain and suffering because we are seeing only a small segment on a bigger trajectory. The trajectory is from nothing to full manifestation, but we are seeing only a small part of it, and therefore the small part we feel miserable, happy. It is due to ignorance of ours that we are not able to understand and grasp the meaning, the necessity, the purpose behind this entire operation. The divine logic is perfect, is impeccable, is meaningful with a certain kind of an operative detail at every stage. We had to therefore grow into that divine quality to understand the divine process. Otherwise we will curse him. What fellow is making this kind of a world like that, you see. But this is the whole process by which you cannot help it. And then when he is doing that thing, see, to us, all these people, Pishachas, Rakshasas, Asuras, the demon, the giant, the titan, they appear terrible and they appear horrible, you see. But then, if you see the content behind it, there is sort of a joy that something has come out. That life force was now present in a certain kind of a dynamic manner. Maybe it may not be very good. You have got the Renaissance, you have got this thing, you have got that kind of a thing. For a certain purpose, that itself is joy. So everywhere there is a divine bliss in the creation, even in that place. The divine is enjoying because out of nothing something has come out. Is that not a great thing? Or is that not a great thing? Is not a thing to be enjoyed, to be happy about it? You see, that out of nothing something has come out. Maybe today it looks so, but then out of that ugliness, a flower starts opening out and blossoming. Is that not yet another beauty, another joy of coming? Like that it will keep on happening. So at any moment of this evolution, although to us in a limited manner looks ugly and very disgusting and very painful and all that thing, there is a sort of a joy in it, you see. That out of nothing, something is emerging constantly. What else can be born? You see. So the divine is enjoying in that sense, you see. Something is happening. Nespa? You don't agree?
Yes, I agree.
You don't agree? You can't help it. It is there. It is so. It is so. And I really think it is a kind of a joy. To create even the absolute void is a joy. It is a joy of creation. You are bringing out something creative. That is always an act of bliss, an act of joy.
Yeah, but if you're not have to be in it and suffer, it's
If you don't,
okay, but
if you don't,
suffer, it's not okay.
yeah, if you don't understand your purpose, then gone. You see, because you are saying, you see, you are scolding a child. You feel very happy, unhappy, and that kind of. But then you are doing for the good of the child that you don't remember. The child will see later on that what I was getting was for my good. For my good, to give a certain discipline, certain way of life, and that kind of a thing, you are imposing on him. So he may feel very miserable at that moment of time, but in the course of life, he will understand that it was good for my growth, for my progress, for my well-being.